Yeah, I bet you didn't expect a Xenoblade news out of me the day before Nintendo's E3 presentation, but hopefully we get enough news about Xenoblade to do another Xenoblade news after that. Yeah, second channel links in the description if you want to watch my reaction to the Direct. Also, you can just listen to this video, because the only thing on screen is going to be Fane Titan stuck in the desert. I had like 45 minutes of that because I got completely lost, so I gotta use it somewhere, and this is it. Anyway, what we're going to be talking about is a new interview with Tetsuya Takahashi that was recently published by 4Gamer, which is a Japanese publication. I don't know if they're just gaming. Should have looked more into this. They might be like media in general. But this was translated by Xenomura.wordpress, the translator, the person who runs it and wrote this article is named Lugal Banda after the X-Tyrant. And this is the same blog that translated the back of the Siren model covers. This is definitely someone reputable. And there's going to be a link to the translation in the description. If you want the original article, which is just in Japanese, you can Google translate it. It's not going to give you anything accurate, but you can do it. You could just Google Tetsuya Takahashi 4Gamer. Interesting thing about this interview, though, is it was not just the 4Gamer person and Takahashi, because Katsuhiro Harada from Namco, aka the Tekken guy, was also there. It was basically one interviewer talking to two different people from two different backgrounds, very different styles of games they work on, asking them similar questions to get their differing opinions on and all that kind of thing. So it was, from that point of view, it's kind of interesting, but this translation only focused on the Xeno-related stuff, so there's not too much Harada in there, and it's also just not everything in there, so eventually I would like to look for a full translation, but this is good for all the Xeno stuff. The cool thing, though, is that they had sort of crossed paths in the past, because Tekken is owned by Namco. Harada works for Namco, develops a bunch of Namco games in addition to the Tekken series. Monolith Soft used to be owned by Namco. That's why Xenosaga is owned by Namco. So they were in the same building at one point, which was kind of interesting. And actually, an interesting thing about Harada talking about when he was a junior employee at Namco and had to stay overnight at the company because the company was a better place to live than at his house, he says, and his boss would bring food to eat, but at Monolith Soft there was just takeout sushi past the door, so apparently early Monolith Soft inherited a lot of culture from the original Square before they left. Takahashi was asked why his recruitment pages always put map design front and center, and he responds that the one thing he's always been consistent with were maps and locations are the most important thing about making the game. This is nothing new. The interviewer was confused. It's like, but I thought Monolith Soft was all about story. Takahashi's like, yeah, I make RPGs, that goes without saying. So, I don't know. But then this is the interesting part. Takahashi was asked how he comes up with a plot for his games. And he said, when it's still on paper, I say, there's a world like this with characters like this, and that's all I've decided on. So, he comes up with the world and the characters first before the actual story. Then he comes up with a basic storyline, decides the general script, tells that to his staff, and then the rest of the game, like the actual gameplay development people, and he says planners, game designers, and programmers, so that's kind of encompassing everyone besides the story people, basically, start working together and figuring out an actual game, and then he says if there's a problem, we get feedback, fix the plot, tidy up characters, and then get down to the nitty-gritty of the script once the game progression is set in stone. So they come up with a world and characters first, then gameplay, then the full story, which is kind of interesting, and this heavily implies that he's been doing it this way since the beginning. So while yes, later games did put in references and direct ties to other things, but it looks like he's been doing that from the beginning. So he just probably figured, okay, I gotta see how I could tie this into Xenogears or Perfect Works or something. But then here's the interesting thing. The interviewer said, and how long would you say it's taken at that point? He says, 8 to 10 months. By that point, we know what we need to make and have the proper environment to do so, and then we start making all the assets, and we're at the 2.5 to 3 year mark. So this implies that Monolith Soft RPGs take 2.5 to 3 years to make. And that is pretty on brand with specifically Xenoblade 2. X was a bit weird because they had to revamp it partway through, and I think this is about accurate with Xenoblade 1 as well. Can't really speak for the Saga games. I think Xenogears took a little less time, but that was because they also had more of Squaresoft at their bidding than just the Monolith people. So, what does this tell us? Well, first off, we already know that they have a team working on the next Xeno title. Presumably it's a Xeno game. Hopefully it's Xenoblade Chronicles X2. This means that we can expect it to come out roughly 3 years, I'd say maybe 3.5, once they start working on it. So when would they have started working on it? Well, we've got Xenoblade 2 that came out a year and a half ago now. And Torna, roughly half a year. No, it's not even half a year. Not half a year. Torna's been out for like 8 months or something. It's been out for a while. That's the important part. So, where does that put them? Did they start working on the next game immediately after 2 released? But they also had the DLC for 2. Not just Torna, but Challenge Mode and stuff. Well, it seems that a lot of things for Challenge Mode, for New Game Plus, were already in the game's code, and were just going to be added and completed before the DLC came out. New Game Plus was intended for the base game, it just happened to not be there. All the Torna Blades were in the base game, and it was just because of timing that they couldn't get it out. So, with the exception of Torna, it looks like the gameplay people, at least, and, well, actually, now that I think about it, all the DLC was only gameplay people. That means because Torna's plot was a draft plot, an original plot, not like it was one of Takahashi's original ideas for the plot of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So they already had the plot and just had to flesh out a shorter script and character interactions than they'd done for the main game. And beyond that, a lot of it was reused assets and just gameplay stuff. So that means that pretty much once Torna got partway through, Takahashi could devote a lot of his time to the next Xenoblade game. And he says that he writes the main script himself, but side quests and all that stuff is delegated to other staff, and he just kind of supervises. So that's interesting, and that implies that I'd say the next Xenoblade game has been in development to some degree for around a year. And I think it would be kind of... it makes sense to me, the fact that they're hiring now for this game, because they're out of the planning phase. And that means that they're ready to start building the entire game from a gameplay perspective, which means that 8 to 10 month thing has already passed, and that's 8 to 10 months out of 2.5 to 3 years, at least. So, if you Google translate it, it looks like he's saying that the next Xenoblade has been in production for 8 to 10 months, and it will be out in 2.5 to 3 years, but that's not true. That's just his normal workflow. The game's been in development for a while already, which means it's coming pretty soon. I could see the action RPG, if it's not revealed tomorrow, to come out in 2020, and then at E3 that year or 2021 to see our first hints towards the next Xenoblade game and the hype cycle starts anew. So, that's our other Xenoblade stuff. Basically, it's about what we expected. The time to wait between Xenoblade 2 and whatever the next game is going to be about the same time as the wait between Xenoblade X and Xenoblade 2, which was 2.5 years for Japan and 2 years almost exactly for North America. So, yeah, it's already been 1.5 years since Xenoblade 2 came out. So, like, it's not going to be a holiday 2020, but it could very easily be a holiday 2021 release. So, that's nice. A few other things Takahashi was asked what his ideal RPG was. He said one with a world you never want to leave. So, that again goes back to his world design first philosophy. That's good. That seems very X-like, because X's focus was the world over anything else, which makes me hope he's working on an X game. He also apparently did not know about the petition to get a Xenosaga remaster until Harada told him about it. Which I guess makes sense, because the Namco employee would be getting more of the Namco-related stuff, like for the Namco Xeno IP, but it's kind of interesting that he didn't know. And despite that, he doesn't really know at all, because, like, he might not... It's like, Namco has gotten Monolith Soft to work on things before, but it's still ultimately up to them if Xenosaga gets remastered, so... It's a bit of a weird thing, because, like, Takahashi's like, wow, I didn't know people wanted this. But even if they do, he doesn't have the power to actually make it happen, which is kind of interesting. Also, some of the reasons Xenosaga Episode 1 has so many cutscenes is because the rendering engine wasn't finished until 6 months of the final deadline. He apparently mentioned this on Iwata Asks before, but this is the first time he talked about it being half the reason why. So, apparently they just straight up couldn't get gameplay fully working until very soon to release, so they just kind of put in more cutscenes because they knew what they were doing there. He also said that after Xenosaga Episode 1, a consultant working for Namco thought it was in the best interest of Monolith to be put in a tough spot to grow as a company. Which is kind of a dick move, because Episode 2 happened after that, and that kind of made the entire Xenosaga series fall apart. He also describes the company during Episode 1 development as a sleepless town working without holidays, and explains this as the reason for the disaster that was Episode 2, saying they swung too far in the opposite direction. His atmosphere is working within deadlines and budgets to not do that, and so he actually kind of admits that 2 didn't do too well, and that they had to quickly work in fan feedback into Episode 3. So he actually says, we tried to course correct, but we couldn't fix it all. I'm very sorry. So apologizing for the ending Xenosaga had, I guess. I mean, people like Episode 3, but plot-wise, they weren't able to wrap up nearly as much, which is the thing. But he also says the only reason the Xenoblade series exists today is because of those 3 games, I think, which is definitely true. So, yeah. If you're like, yeah, I only care about Xenoblade, Xenogears and Xenosaga are dumb and old, and they're not important. This is why. The games you like wouldn't exist without these, so stop being whiny and pay tribute where it's due to the games that came before. Then Harada says you don't end up with that never give up philosophy without that kind of experience, I think. Let's see. So, as a translator's note, the translator said, "Man, I'm sure the overseas Xenosaga fans will have a field day with this article saying there might still be hope. Hey, this is the first I've even heard of this." I mean, this implies Namco's aware of the petition, which is nice. And now Takahashi's aware of this petition, so hey. Anyway. Takahashi also says that they're considering joining up with another company besides Namco when they first formed Monolith Soft. And he also says they often wonder where we would be if they chose the other option. I'm not sure. Xenosaga would be very different, I know that much, but who knows if they would ever end up with Nintendo. He didn't reveal what company it was, so what do I know? Asked for what experiences Takahashi looks for new hires. He says people who have gone through hell and back, which, interesting. But then he follows that up with saying that Monolith Soft has overtime based on a schedule and the go-ahead of higher-ups. So, especially by Japan standards, Monolith is, like, actually trying to avoid crunch, which is nice. I would rather Xenoblade 2 have been delayed to fix the launch issues, but I'd rather it come out with those issues and have them fixed later than the employees get overworked and then a bunch of them leave the company and never bring their talents back to another Xenoblade. But, like, that's good. That's good. Also, just an interesting thing about the structure of Monolith Soft. Employee numbers are based on seniority. The newest workers that were recruited very recently are in the 200s. The current number of people working is in the 200s. About 100 have quit. Numbers 50 to 100 are where the most vacancies are, which is the people who joined Monolith Soft during Episode 2, so Episode 2 screwed over a lot of things. He also says that they've sent Nintendo 10-plus business proposals over the years. The only one recently approved has been Xenoblade, according to Takahashi. Now, that's kind of unfortunate, but that's the only one that was approved recently. Recently means within the last couple of years, I guess. And he doesn't say which Xenoblade, so this probably means the next Xenoblade was the most recent thing that was approved. But we also know that they're working on their own action RPG IP, and they're also working for Zelda. So I don't know if they had to submit something like, hey, I'd like to work on the next Zelda game, or if it was Nintendo just like, we trust you with the Zelda IP now. It could be either way, but it kind of sucks, but also we're still getting Xenoblade. There's no real indication whether or not he was upset by this. If he was, I'd feel worse, but he doesn't seem to be, so I'm okay. Harada said something saying, based on Final Fantasy 15 success, says that a bigger focus on better technology would get JRPGs over the 1 million sales wall. Takahashi was skeptical, saying that while it might work for some, he doesn't think that approach would be feasible for Monolith Soft's budget. I hard agree. Don't go chasing tech stuff. That's why Final Fantasy 15 was a complete disaster until like a couple of years later when it got overhauled. I intend to play it again and give it another fair chance, but even if I enjoy it, that doesn't clean Square's slate off, because Final Fantasies 14 and 15, that means both of their most recent main series Final Fantasy games took 2 iterations to actually do properly, which is inexcusable. But, let's see. Takahashi also says that, he said he's considered doing something other than JRPGs, but he makes such games just because he likes them, which is kind of funny. I believe, it's not in the translation, but, let's see. I'm going to pull up the original article. Just because it's, I believe, I just need to double check this because I'm pretty sure he mentioned JoJo, which is a pretty funny tangent, but let's see. No, that's not it. I'm searching the Reddit because I can't find it easily. I'm sorry. I should be cutting this out, but I'm not going to. Let's see. There we go. Got the interview. Alright. But yeah, while I'm looking for this, I can explain. He basically said he's considered doing things other than JRPGs. Obviously, Zelda isn't a JRPG. The new game they're working on is an action RPG, so it's less typical JRPG stuff. So, that exists. But his team is the Xeno team. And basically, he compared himself only doing JRPGs to Hirohiko Araki only doing JoJo, which I think is hilarious because, well, yeah, JoJo is just kind of huge in Japan, so it's not like any big surprise that he knows about it or cares about it. But the funny thing to me is his wife is a massive JoJo fan. She literally, I think, has her own Steel Ball Run fan manga, which is great. And, like, she designed Gorg in Xenoblade 2, who is literally a JoJo character, and specifically looks like a Part 7 one, so that's kind of funny. I just like that. But, let's see. But yeah, that actually, another stupid tangent, but it kind of made me think of, they're looking for a distinctive art style for the Xeno series. Imagine if they got Hirohiko Araki to do character designs for the next Xeno game. Like, that would kind of be amazing. But at the same time, it really wouldn't, because Araki's character designs are just, like, so detailed and so, like, they always lose something, even in color. Like, just with pencil, they work right. It's like, you already saw what happened when manga artists tried designing Xenoblade characters for some of the rare blades, and a lot of them just did not translate well into 3D models. So, like, it would be kind of funny. I would like to see him at least attempt to draw a Xenoblade character at some point, but it's not actually going to happen. Anyway, he also says he debugs more than anyone on staff, plays the finished product, and says he can't release something that he himself doesn't find enjoyable, which is good. That's always the best part. Like, developers will refuse to release something that they don't like themselves, because if I find a developer that I like, that I have similar opinions to, then that means that I know I'm going to enjoy their games. Yeah, he also says he plays most major games, including mobile, for about 8 hours each. I'm assuming he means that he gives each game he plays about 8 hours to, like, test out, see his opinions on it. And if he likes something more, then, he'll play it more, I guess. Yeah, there we go, I found it. This is the Google translation version of it, but, so basically the 4Gamer person asked, I know that the Google translation says Monolith's specialty is RPG. Is there any possibility to expand the genre to other genres? That's Google Translate. The actual translation said that it was asked specifically Takahashi about JRPG specifically, which makes more sense because, you know, we already know Monolith is making not JRPG games. But according to Google Translate, he says, there is no way. Just a long time ago, manga artist Hirohiko Araki said in an interview that I cannot draw anything except JoJo. It's a very understandable story, and I think we have something similar, which basically means he sees a kindred spirit in Araki only being able to do one thing. And, I mean, I'm glad he enjoys only making Xeno games, because I'm enjoying the fact that he's still making Xeno games. And yeah, that's about it. It's just a bit of interesting side information about the development of the entire Xeno series, mostly Saga, and a few other things about Xenoblade. But the big thing is, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has sold 1.73 million copies as of March 2019, which is great, because this is before the Nintendo Switch voucher program started. And the Nintendo Switch voucher program is doing massive numbers for Xenoblade 2 in Japan. It is very likely to hit 2 million sales, which is incredible. I'm glad the game's seeing a resurgence. Convince your friends to use their Nintendo Switch vouchers to buy a copy of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the Nintendo Switch, and then also purchase the DLC, which is the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 expansion pass for the Nintendo Switch, also containing the other video games, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torn to the Gold Country for the Nintendo Switch, and then, if other Xenoblade games get to the Nintendo Switch, let them play that. But, yeah, that's just great to see. It's not been on the top 10, but I guess just because of the interview, they gave details, because like Nintendo is kind of bad. They only give sales figures for games that are on their top 10 best selling for the system after, I think the first year the game's out. So this is interesting. It's not going to get back to the top 10, but it's going to be cool. I'm glad the game is doing well. More fans means more people to buy the next game, which means a bigger budget for the next game, which just means a better next game. Yeah. Good for you, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. You deserve it, and hopefully every other Xenoblade game does even better and gets even better. I don't know why I'm getting sentimental here. I need to edit this video and render it fast, because I am about to watch and react to Square Enix's E3 thing. Goodbye.